Here with me, CNN political commentators Amanda Carpenter and Bakari Sellers, Democratic Congressman Xavier Becerra, and former Republican Governor of Arizona, Jan Brewer. Governor, let me start with you. Whatever happened to we're going to win so much you're going to be sick of winning? Now he's talking about nice long vacations.
Well, I think, Jake, that anybody that's in a embattled campaign, they think, well, if I don't win, I'm going to go on a long vacation. It's not unheard of candidates saying that. I've said it. I think everybody has said it.
You've said it publicly? I mean, you say it to it privately.
Sure. You know, even if you win, sometimes you think you deserve a nice long vacation. Campaigning is difficult, as you are well aware.
Yeah, no, it's very tough.
And, you know, it's like 18 hours a day, grind, 7 days a week. And you deserve a vacation, so why not? But Donald Trump's going to win.
Okay. But Bakari, what did you make of the tone there?
No, I actually think there's a lot of Americans who really want Donald Trump to go on a nice long vacation. I think that Donald Trump, what we're starting to see is him take some different tacks. For example, yesterday Donald Trump was campaigning in Connecticut. I don't think there's any GOP strategist that will tell you that Connecticut's going to all of a sudden turn red, because it's simply not. I think that Donald Trump, I was reading the New York Times article, although they don't write good, as Donald Trump has said recently. But I think that what we're starting to see is Donald Trump's campaign is just falling apart at the seams. We saw that earlier with Paul Manafort on this show just earlier. And they're trying to regroup, but Donald Trump just will not stay on the rails. At least Corey Lewandowski, our new colleague, had him on the rails. There were rails there. Now he's just falling completely apart.
But let me ask you, Amanda, you heard Mr. Manafort blaming the media for not covering. That Donald Trump is on message, he's got a plan, he's talking about it, but the media is just following the Hillary Clinton playbook and covering these distractions. What did you make of that, and what do you think?
Well, here's the thing. Donald Trump started off the week relatively okay. He had an economic speech I listened to. I said, gosh, there are some things we could work with here. He's on message, and then what did he do shortly after? He went out and decided his talking point for the week would be that Obama founded ISIS. He made his surrogates go out, defend it for an entire day. And then he came out a day later saying he's only being sarcastic. So he blew his economic speech and then spent 3 days on that talking point that he then took back as sarcastic. That is the problem.
And what do you make of it, Congressman? I mean, Hillary Clinton, and we'll talk about her in the next panel, but Hillary Clinton, she's not been able to break 50% in a lot of these polls. So even though she's up like in double digits in some of them, it really seems to be an indication of his weakness more than her like super strength.
Self-inflicted wounds. Clearly, Donald Trump is his own worst enemy, and he's causing himself difficulty. And he's a guy that just won't follow the script. He won't follow any direction, and he thinks it works, and it doesn't. And I'm going to be the first to buy him flip-flops for that long vacation, because that's what it is.
Don't you, as a Trump supporter, doesn't this bother you when he goes out there and makes a, I don't know how you interpreted it, but his remark about the Second Amendment, which like definitely got him off message for a day or two, and then he starts talking about Obama as the founder of ISIS. Doesn't that bother you? You want him to win.
Absolutely, I want him to win, and I believe that the American public wants him to win, and I think that he will win. Well, we have polls that clearly are saying that he's closing that gap now. They're moving forward. I've got them in front of me here, but the bottom line is that we are closing the polls. But Donald Trump is out there talking to the people, and he's very realistic, and he's a different kind of candidate, a lot different than Hillary Clinton, who doesn't give press conferences, doesn't answer questions, and the media tends to look at a few little statements that he might say off the cuff and blow them up. Let's talk about the policies that he's put out. And he's getting ready to do another policy release on Monday on terrorism, and I hope that that is well received. I'm sure that it will be, because those are the issues that people are concerned about. They're concerned about jobs, the economy, security, and we want to hear more about that, rather than the press completely and continuously just beating down on certain little one-word sentences.
How dare we cover the comments he makes? One of the things that he said the other day was about how that the election might be rigged, and the only way he would lose a state like Pennsylvania, which has not gone Republican in a presidential contest since I was 19 years old, since 1988. He said the only way he would lose Pennsylvania is if the election were rigged. Take a listen.
The only way we can lose, in my opinion, I really mean this, Pennsylvania, is if cheating goes on. I really believe it.
He's down 10 points in the latest Q poll in Pennsylvania. How on earth is that a responsible thing to say?
Well, I believe, and I was the chief election officer of the state of Arizona for 6 years, so we know that the integrity of voting is very important, not only to Donald Trump, but to everyone. Everybody wants to know that their vote does count. And so we have implemented all kinds of security, procedures, poll watchers, the certification of the equipment, the instructions, all the
Yeah, you're
things
not really
that you
answering
go
the
through.
But if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Governor, but if I may, this is a long list, a litany of Donald Trump denigrating our democracy. He has no respect for the institutions of this country, whether or not it's the judiciary and its attacks on Judge Curiel. Now he's denigrating our democracy, the very root of our democracy, which are our elections. I have a very, very big problem with voter ID, which is gone rampant in the Republican Party as they try to prevent black and brown people from voting and those seniors from voting.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
that is ridiculous.
Well, you don't have any.
We have implemented voter ID in Arizona. It is working.
And Arizona had
absolutely
some of the worst
perfect.
primary elections of this cycle, and I think that everyone understands
How
that.
so?
Because you had lines, especially in the Democratic primary, you had lines of 4 and 5 hours where people were not able to vote. But voter ID has been proven to disenfranchise older
Based
people
on the
and people are
basis of
black
the
and
past,
brown.
and in regards to the numbers in the past, they put up the polling places
Well, how
according
many
to the vote
instances-
turn.
I want to get back
County.
to the issue about challenging the idea of Pennsylvania. If Mr. Trump loses Pennsylvania, it's only because it's rigged.
Sure, and we saw Donald Trump use this kind of talking point through the primary process. Any state that he won, he overcame the rigged process by such overwhelming margins that he had to win by such a big thing. Where Ted Cruz won a state, the election was rigged. But here's the problem I see more largely with Donald Trump saying things like this. He's a provocateur without a point. If he was trying to say these elections may be rigged, we need voter ID laws, if there was some kind of turning point in that where he's going into a positive direction, you could see where he's going, that would be one thing. But he's just denigrating the process that in a way that he thinks will be advantageous to him and no one else.